If you tell your father, I will say your secret." Those words hung in the air between us like poison. My mother stood there in her wedding dress, white lace and pearls, looking more beautiful than I had ever seen her, and more terrifying. Behind her, through the courthouse window, I could see her new husband waiting by a black Mercedes, smoking a cigarette with the casual confidence of a man who had just gotten exactly what he wanted. I was 18 years old, standing in a courthouse hallway in Sacramento, California, holding my phone with 127 photographs that could destroy everything my father believed in. Photos of my mother in that wedding dress. Photos of her kissing another man. Photos of her signing a marriage license, while my father was 8,000 miles away in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, probably dodging Taliban bullets at that very moment. "Lucas, are you listening to me?" My mother's voice was sharp now, cutting through my shock. "I need to know that you understand. Your father cannot know about this. Ever." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I did not recognize the woman who had raised me. This was not the mom who had helped me with algebra homework. This was not the woman who had cried at my high school graduation 3 months ago. This was a stranger wearing my mother's face. "How?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "How could you do this to him?" She reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. Something flashed in her eyes. Hurt, maybe, or anger. I could not tell anymore. "You are too young to understand adult relationships," she said, and that made something snap inside me. "I am 18, I said, louder than I intended. "I am old enough to join the military like Dad. I am old enough to vote. I am old enough to testify in court. Do not tell me I am too young to understand betrayal. My name is Lucas Mitchell. 3 months ago, I graduated from Roseville High School with a 3.8 GPA and plans to study engineering at Sacramento State. I had a summer job at a local auto shop, a girlfriend named Emma, who was heading to Berkeley in the fall, and a pretty normal life. I lived with my mom in a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs, while my father, Staff Sergeant David Mitchell, served his 3rd deployment in Afghanistan. I thought becoming an adult meant freedom, independence, maybe my first apartment. Instead, it meant standing in a courthouse hallway, holding evidence of my mother's secret marriage, and realizing that sometimes being an adult means making choices that will haunt you forever. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I got here. How my normal summer turned into a nightmare that forced me to grow up faster than I ever wanted to. It started 4 weeks ago, on a Tuesday morning in late July. I had been working the early shift at Martinez Auto Repair, changing oil and rotating tires, when my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "Need you home by 2 p.m. Important." That was it. No explanation, no context. My mom was usually more communicative, especially since Dad deployed 6 months ago. She would send me long texts about her day, photos of the garden she was working on, recipes she wanted to try. This terse message felt off. I clocked out at 1:30 and drove home in my beat-up 2008 Honda Civic, the one Dad and I had rebuilt together, before he left. The house looked normal from the outside. Our lawn was freshly mowed. The American flag Dad had hung before deployment still hung proudly by the front door. Everything seemed exactly as it should be. But when I walked inside, I knew immediately that nothing was normal. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table with a man I had never seen before. He was maybe 45, with salt and pepper hair and expensive-looking clothes. A suit jacket hung on the back of his chair. He stood up when I entered, extending his hand with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Lucas, this is Richard Hartwell," my mom said, her voice bright but strained. "He is a friend from work." Richard Hartwell. The name meant nothing to me then. I shook his hand because that is what you do, what you are taught to do when an adult extends their hand. His grip was firm, calculated. the handshake of a businessman. "Your mother has told me so much about you," Richard said. "Congratulations on your graduation. Engineering at Sac State, right? That is impressive." "Thanks," I said, looking at my mom. Her smile was frozen, artificial. "Mom, what is this about?" "Sit down, honey. Richard and I need to talk to you about something." I sat. Richard sat. My mom poured iced tea into 3 glasses with hands that shook slightly. That was the first real sign that something was deeply wrong. My mother never showed nervousness. Even when Dad deployed, even during the scary times when we would go weeks without hearing from him, she maintained this unshakable composure. "Lucas, you know that your father and I have had our difficulties," she began. That was true. I was not blind. I had heard the arguments before Dad's deployment, the tense conversations about money, about his decision to re-enlist, about her feeling abandoned every time he chose the military over staying home. But they had been married for 20 years. They had me. They had a history. Difficulties that have led me to make some important decisions about my future, she continued. About our future. "Okay," I said slowly, a knot forming in my stomach. Richard cleared his throat. "Lucas, your mother and I have been seeing each other for the past 8 months. We met at the hospital where she works. I am on the board of directors there." 8 months. My brain did the math automatically. Dad deployed 6 months ago. That meant she started seeing Richard 2 months before Dad left, while he was preparing for deployment, while he was training, while he was saying goodbye to his family. She was already with someone else. "We have fallen in love," my mom said, reaching across the table to take Richard's hand. "And I know this is difficult to hear, but I need you to understand. Your father and I, we have grown apart. This deployment made me realize that I cannot keep living this way, waiting and worrying, always coming second to the military." "Does Dad know?" I asked, my voice sounding strange and distant to my own ears. "No," she said quickly, "and that is what I need to talk to you about. Richard and I are getting married next week. We are keeping it quiet, just a simple courthouse ceremony. Your father does not need to know until he comes home. There is no point in distracting him while he is in a war zone." I stared at her, then at Richard, then back at her. "You are getting married," I repeated slowly, "while Dad is deployed, while he is in Afghanistan, risking his life. Lucas, I know how this sounds, but you have to understand." "No," I said, standing up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the kitchen floor. "No, I do not have to understand anything. This is insane. You are married to Dad. You cannot just marry someone else while he is overseas." "Actually, I can," she said, and her voice had gone cold now. "I filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. The papers are being processed. By the time the ceremony happens, I will legally be allowed to remarry." 3 weeks ago? You filed for divorce 3 weeks ago, and you are telling me now? "I am telling you now because you are an adult and you deserve to know, and because I need you to support me in this. Richard and I are planning a life together. He has asked me to move to his house in Granite Bay after the wedding. It is bigger, nicer. You would have your own room, your own bathroom. You could still go to Sac State. It is only a 20-minute drive." "You have got to be kidding me." I looked at Richard, who was sitting there calmly, like we were discussing vacation plans instead of my mother destroying our family. "And you are okay with this? Marrying a woman whose husband is deployed?" "Your father will be fine," Richard said smoothly. "Your mother told me he is a career soldier. Men like that, they always land on their feet. He will move on." "Move on? He has been married to her for 20 years. "Lucas, calm down," my mom said. "Do not tell me to calm down. Does Dad know you filed for divorce? Have you even told him?" She looked away. That was my answer. "Jesus, Mom. He is in a war zone, and you have not even told him you are divorcing him." "It is complicated," she said. "The mail is unreliable. I did not want to send something like that in an email or a letter that might get lost. But you can marry someone else. You can move in with him. You can plan your whole new life without even having the decency to tell Dad that his marriage is over." Richard stood up then, putting his hand on my mom's shoulder in a gesture that was probably meant to be supportive but looked possessive to me. "I think maybe we should give Lucas some time to process this," he said. "It is a lot of information." "I do not need time," I said. "I need you to leave my house." "Lucas." My mom's voice was sharp. "That is enough. You will not speak to Richard that way." "Why?" "Because he is going to be my new stepdad? Because he bought you some expensive dinners and a house in Granite Bay? I do not care who he is. This is still my dad's house, and he does not belong here." I grabbed my keys and walked out. I heard my mom calling after me, but I did not stop. I got in my car and drove, no destination in mind, just away from that house, away from my mother's betrayal, away from Richard Hartwell and his confident smile. I ended up at Emma's house. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. I told her everything, the words spilling out in an angry, confused rush. She listened without interrupting, her hand holding mine. "What are you going to do?" she asked when I finally stopped talking. "I do not know," I admitted. "I should tell my dad. He deserves to know." "Can you even contact him?" That was the problem. Communication with deployed soldiers was limited and unpredictable. Dad had a military email address, but he only checked it every few days when he had access to a computer. He could not receive phone calls. Letters took weeks to arrive, if they arrived at all. "I could send an email," I said, "but what do I even say?" "Hey, Dad, by the way, Mom is marrying someone else next week." "That feels wrong. He is dealing with enough over there." "But not telling him feels wrong too," Emma said gently. She was right. Every option felt wrong. Tell my father and potentially distract him in a war zone. Do not tell him and become complicit in my mother's deception. There was no good choice. How did this become my decision? I asked, more to myself than to Emma. I am 18. I should be worrying about college and parties and normal stuff. I should not be the one deciding whether to blow up my father's world. "You are not blowing it up," Emma said. "Your mom already did that. You are just deciding whether he gets to know about it now or later." I went home late that night. The house was dark, except for a light on in the kitchen. I found my mom sitting at the table with a glass of wine, still wearing the same clothes from earlier. "We need to talk," she said when I walked in. I sat down across from her, arms crossed. "I know you are angry," she started. "I know this is not what you wanted to hear. But Lucas, I need you to try to understand my side of this. Your side is that you are cheating on Dad while he is deployed. I am not cheating. I filed for divorce. That makes this a legal separation. You filed paperwork Dad does not even know about. That is not separation. That is abandonment." She winced at that word. "Good. She should feel bad. Your father chose the military over his family," she said, her voice rising slightly. 3 deployments, Lucas. 3 times he has left us. 3 times he has chosen to go overseas instead of staying home with us. Do you know what that is like? Do you know what it is like to raise a child essentially alone, to go to every school event by yourself, to lie awake every night wondering if tonight is the night you get the visit from the casualty notification officers? "He is serving his country," I said, but my voice was less certain now. "He is running away," she countered, "from responsibility, from the hard work of being a husband and father. It is easier for him to be Staff Sergeant Mitchell overseas than it is to be David Mitchell at home, dealing with a mortgage and a teenage son and a wife who needs him." I did not know what to say to that. There was truth in what she said, truth I had never wanted to acknowledge. Dad was different when he was home between deployments, restless, uncomfortable, like he did not quite fit into civilian life anymore. I had always assumed it was because he missed his unit, missed the mission. But maybe it was also because he did not know how to be just a regular dad and husband anymore. Even if that is true, I said finally, even if Dad is not perfect, this is still wrong. You do not marry someone else while your husband is deployed. You do not make your kid keep secrets like this. I am not asking you to keep secrets, she said. I am asking you to give me time to tell your father in my own way when he is home and safe. When is he coming home? His deployment ends in 4 months. December 15th. So you want me to keep this secret for 4 months? You want me to lie to him every time we email? Every time he asks how you are doing? I want you to let me handle my own marriage, she said firmly. This is between me and your father. You are our son, not our marriage counselor. This is not your burden to carry. But it was. The moment she told me, the moment she made me aware of what she was doing, it became my burden. Because now if I said nothing, I was choosing sides. I was choosing her over him, and I did not want to make that choice. What about Richard? I asked. Where does he fit into all this? My mom's face softened when she said his name. That was almost worse than anything else, seeing her expression change like that. Richard makes me happy, she said simply. He treats me the way I deserve to be treated. He comes home every night. He takes me to nice restaurants, and we have actual conversations about things that matter. He listens to me. Lucas, when was the last time your father really listened to me? So this is about nice dinners and good conversation? It is about being seen. It is about being valued. It is about being with someone who chooses you every single day instead of choosing to leave. We sat in silence for a while. The kitchen clock ticked loudly, marking seconds that felt like hours. The wedding is next Tuesday, she said eventually, at the courthouse downtown, 10 in the morning. I would like you to be there. Why? Because you are my son. Because this is an important moment in my life, and I want you there. I do not think I can do that, I said. I am not asking you to approve. I am asking you to show up. Can you do that for me? Can you just be there? I looked at my mother, really looked at her. She was 43 years old, still beautiful, with worry lines around her eyes that had not been there before Dad's deployment started. She had spent 20 years as a military wife, moving when the army said move, saying goodbye over and over, raising me largely alone. Part of me understood why she wanted out. Part of me even understood why she had fallen for Richard, who probably represented everything Dad was not. Stable, present, attentive. But understanding did not make it hurt less. Understanding did not make it right. I will think about it, I said. That was a week ago. Since then, I had done nothing but think about it. I had composed a dozen emails to my dad and deleted them all. I had argued with Emma about what the right thing to do was. I had barely slept, my mind spinning through scenarios and consequences. And then Tuesday morning came. I woke up to a text from my mom. Courthouse at 10. Please come. I need you there. I stared at that text for 20 minutes. I could stay home. I could go to work at the auto shop and pretend this was not happening. I could send an email to my dad right now and blow the whole thing up. But instead, I got in my car and drove to the courthouse. I told myself I was going to stop it. I was going to walk in there and object, like in the movies. I was going to tell them this was wrong, that my father deserved better, that my mother was making a huge mistake. But when I got there, when I saw my mom in that wedding dress looking so happy, the words would not come. Richard was there in an expensive suit. There was a judge, an officiant, a woman from Richard's office serving as the other witness. It was small and quick and efficient. I stood in the corner and watched my mother marry another man while my father was in Afghanistan. I did not speak. I did not object. I just stood there with my phone in my hand, taking pictures because some part of me knew I would need evidence of this. Knew that someday I would have to prove this happened. 127 photographs. Every moment documented. The vows, the ring exchange, the kiss, the signatures on the marriage license. All of it captured on my phone in high-definition clarity. After the ceremony, Richard shook my hand again. "Thank you for being here, Lucas," he said. "I know this is not easy, but I promise I will take good care of your mother. You are welcome at our home anytime." Our home, not his home. Our home. Like I was supposed to just accept this new reality, this new family structure. My mom hugged me, her wedding dress rustling. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "I know what this cost you. I love you." And then they left for a mini honeymoon at a resort in Napa. 3 days of celebrating while my father was in Helmand province, probably sleeping in a tent and eating MREs. That was when my mom pulled me aside in the courthouse hallway. After Richard had walked ahead, that was when she grabbed my arm and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, something hard and desperate. "If you tell your father, I will say you are lying," she said. "I will say you are confused, that you misunderstood, that you are trying to cause problems because you are upset about the divorce. I will say you are acting out, being difficult, being a teenager. Your father will believe me over you. He always has." And the terrifying thing was, she was probably right. Dad loved me, but he loved her too. He had loved her for 20 years. If it came down to believing his new adult son versus his wife of 2 decades, who would he choose? "I need to know that you understand," she continued. "Your father cannot know about this. Ever. When he comes home, I will tell him about the divorce. I will let him process that. But the marriage to Richard, that has to stay between us. Can you do that for me? Can you keep this secret?" I pulled my arm away from her grip. "I have not decided yet," I said. "Lucas, please. I am your mother. I am asking you to protect me." "What about protecting Dad? Your father is a grown man. He can take care of himself. This is my life. This is my choice. Do not take that away from me." And then she left, walking out to meet Richard at his Mercedes, leaving me standing alone in that courthouse hallway with 127 photographs and a decision that felt too big for my 18 years. I did not go home that day. I could not. Instead, I drove around Sacramento for hours, eventually ending up at William Land Park. I sat by the pond, watching ducks paddle around, trying to figure out what kind of person I wanted to be. If I told my dad, I would be choosing his pain over my mother's wishes. I would be forcing him to deal with this betrayal while he was in a war zone, when he needed to focus on staying alive. What if the news distracted him? What if something happened to him because he was thinking about my mom instead of watching for Aidis? But if I said nothing, I would be lying to him. Every email he sent asking about Mom, I would have to pretend everything was fine. I would have to type out messages like, "Mom is doing well," and "She misses you," when the truth was that she had married someone else and moved into his house. My phone rang. It was Emma. "How did it go?" she asked. I told her everything. The ceremony, the photographs, my mother's threat. "She threatened you?" Emma's voice was sharp with anger. "Lucas, that is messed up. She does not get to make you complicit in this, and then threaten you if you do not play along." "I do not know what to do," I admitted, and my voice cracked. I was 18 years old, sitting by a pond in a park, and I felt like crying for the first time since I was 12. "What does your gut tell you?" Emma asked gently. "My gut tells me that my dad deserves to know the truth, but my gut also tells me that telling him could get him killed. How do I make that choice? How do I decide between two terrible options?" Maybe you do not have to decide right now, Emma said. Maybe you can wait. See how things develop. You have 4 months before he comes home. 4 months of lying. Or 4 months of protecting him until he is somewhere safe. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe there was a version of this where I was protecting my dad instead of betraying him. But I could not quite convince myself. Over the next few weeks, I tried to go on with my normal life. I worked at the auto shop. I went out with Emma. I prepared for college to start in the fall. On the surface, everything looked normal. But underneath, I was drowning in the weight of what I knew. My mom texted me regularly from her honeymoon, then from Richard's house in Granite Bay, where she had moved all her belongings. The messages were cheerful, filled with photos of her new life. The master bedroom with the California king bed, the pool in the backyard, the kitchen with granite countertops and professional-grade appliances. Your room is ready whenever you want to move in, one text said. Richard set up a gaming computer for you. She was trying to buy my silence with amenities. Part of me was insulted. Part of me was tempted. Richard's house was objectively nicer than our little suburban home. I could have my own space, my own bathroom, probably a bigger allowance. But it was blood money. Every comfort would be paid for with my complicity in my father's betrayal. Then, 3 weeks after the wedding, I got an email from my dad. I had been dreading this moment, knowing it would come eventually. Hey Lucas, hope you are doing well. Things are pretty quiet here this week, which is nice after the craziness of last month. I have been thinking a lot about coming home. Only a few more months, and I will be back with you and your mom. I cannot wait. How is she doing? She has not been responding to my emails as much lately. I know she gets busy with work, but tell her I love her and I miss her. How are you doing with getting ready for college? Have you registered for classes yet? I am so proud of you, son. Engineering is a tough major, but I know you can handle it. Stay strong. Love, Dad. I read that email 10 times. Tell her I love her and I miss her. He had no idea that the woman he loved had married someone else 3 weeks ago. No idea that she was living in another man's house, sleeping in another man's bed. I started typing a response and deleted it. Started again. Deleted it. How do you respond to that? How do you pretend everything is fine when you know the truth? Finally, I wrote, Hey Dad, everything is good here. Mom is fine, just busy. I registered for classes. Got a good schedule. Mechanical engineering. Just like we talked about. Stay safe over there. Love you. Short. Vague. Dishonest. I hit send and felt something break inside me. That night, I drove to my old house, the one where I had grown up. My mom had not sold it yet, was planning to put it on the market once Dad came home, and they could split the assets. I had a key. I let myself in. The house felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with furniture or belongings. It felt like a tomb, a memorial to a family that no longer existed. I walked through the rooms, remembering. The living room where we used to watch movies together. The kitchen where Dad would make pancakes on Sunday mornings. My bedroom, still full of my high school stuff. I ended up in my parents' bedroom. It was weird being in there. Felt like trespassing. But I needed to understand. I needed to find something, anything, that would make sense of what my mom had done. I opened her nightstand drawer. Inside, I found letters. Dozens of them. All addressed to my dad, all from my mom. Love letters written during his previous deployments. I read a few of them. My mother's handwriting telling my father how much she missed him, how proud she was of him, how she could not wait for him to come home. You are my hero. One letter said, Every day you are gone is hard, but I know you are doing important work. I love you so much. Come home safe to me. That letter was dated 18 months ago, during his last deployment, less than a year before she met Richard. What changed? What happened between You Are My Hero? and if you tell your father, I will say you are lying." I kept searching and found something else. A folder of financial documents, bank statements, investment portfolios, life insurance policies. I should not have looked, but I did. My father had a $500,000 life insurance policy through the military. If he died during deployment, my mom would get $500,000. There were also accounts in both their names, savings and investments, totaling maybe another 100,000. And then I found Richard's financial statements, somehow mixed in with my parents' documents. Richard Hartwell was worth approximately $4 million. His house alone was worth over $1 million. He had stock portfolios, real estate investments, a boat. My mother had traded a staff sergeant's military salary for a multi-millionaire hospital board member. She had traded uncertainty for security, absence for presence, polyester uniforms for Italian suits. I could not even be fully angry about it, because part of me understood who would not choose financial security over scraping by on a military salary. Who would not choose someone who came home every night over someone who was deployed more than half the time? But understanding is not the same as forgiving, and it definitely is not the same as accepting. I took photos of those financial documents. I do not know why. Maybe because I was already documenting this whole nightmare. Maybe because some part of me knew I would need evidence of everything. August turned into September. College started. I moved into the dorms at Sacramento State, even though my mom wanted me to live in Granite Bay with her and Richard. I told her I wanted the full college experience. The truth was I could not stomach the idea of living in that house, eating breakfast with Richard, pretending we were a family. My classes were hard, but good. I liked engineering, liked the concrete problem solving, the clear right and wrong answers. It was a relief from the moral ambiguity of my home life. I made new friends who did not know about my situation. To them, I was just Lucas Mitchell, engineering major, guy from Sacramento. Normal. I could pretend to be normal around them. But at night, alone in my dorm room, I was not normal. I was a guy carrying a secret that felt heavier every day. My dad sent regular emails, always asking about Mom, always saying he loved her and missed her. And I always lied, always said she was fine, always said she missed him too. Emma came to visit one weekend in late September. We had been trying to maintain our relationship, even though she was at Berkeley and I was at Sac State, but the distance was hard. Harder than it should have been, honestly, because the distance was not really the problem. The problem was that I was not fully present. How could I be when I was constantly carrying this weight? We were in my dorm room when she finally confronted me about it. "You are not okay," she said. It was not a question. "I am fine." "Lucas, you are not fine. You have not been fine since your mom's wedding. This is eating you alive. What am I supposed to do?" I asked, and the frustration I had been holding in for months came spilling out. Tell my dad and risk getting him killed? Stay quiet and be a liar? There is no good option here, Emma. There is no right answer. Maybe the right answer is to stop protecting your mom, she said gently. She made this choice. She is the adult. Why are you the one carrying the consequences of her actions? Because she is my mom, and he is your dad, and he deserves to know the truth. You do not understand, I said. You do not understand what it is like to have to choose between your parents. You do not understand what it is like to hold someone's life in your hands. You are right, Emma said. I do not understand. My parents are still together. They have never put me in this position, and maybe that is why I can see clearly what you cannot. Your mom is manipulating you. She is using your love for your dad to make you complicit in her betrayal. That is not fair to you. We broke up that night. It was mutual and sad and maybe inevitable. How could I be a good boyfriend when I was barely holding myself together? How could I give Emma what she deserved when I was drowning in secrets and lies? After she left, I sat on my dorm room floor and cried. Really cried. For the first time since this whole nightmare started. I cried for my dad, fighting a war and not knowing his marriage was already over. I cried for my mom, so desperate for happiness that she had destroyed her family to find it. I cried for myself, 18 years old and forced to make decisions that no teenager should have to make. And then I made a choice. I opened my laptop and started typing an email to my dad. Dad, I need to tell you something. It is about Mom. I stopped, deleted it, started again. Dad, when you come home, you need to know that. Deleted. Dad, I am sorry, but I cannot keep lying to you. Mom has. Deleted. I could not do it. I could not send that email and potentially distract him in a combat zone. I could not be the reason he lost focus and got hurt. I could not carry that guilt. So I closed my laptop and made a different choice. I would wait until he came home. I would tell him in person when he was safe, when he could process the information without being in danger. It was still a betrayal of sorts, still months of lying, but at least it would not get him killed. That was my logic. Anyway, my justification for choosing my mother's wishes over my father's right to know. I told myself I was protecting him. Maybe I was just protecting myself from having to make a harder choice. October came and went. November arrived. My dad's deployment was winding down. His emails became more frequent, more excited. He would be home December 15th. Just a few more weeks. I cannot wait to see you and your mom, he wrote. I have been dreaming about just normal stuff, you know? Watching football on Sunday. Your mom's cooking. Driving around with you. Maybe working on the Civic together. The simple things. That is what I miss most. The simple things. The normal family life that no longer existed. I knew I should have prepared him somehow. Should have given him some warning that things had changed. But how? How do you warn someone that their entire life has been dismantled in their absence? My mom called me one day in early December. Lucas, I need to talk to you about when your father comes home. What about it? I'm going to tell him about the divorce, about Richard, but I need you to back me up to help him understand that this is for the best. You want me to help you tell Dad that you married someone else. I want you to help your father accept a situation that cannot be changed. I want you to be there for him, to support him. Can you do that? I will be there for Dad, I said carefully, but I am not going to lie for you anymore. If he asks me direct questions, I am going to tell him the truth. There was a long pause. What truth, Lucas? What are you planning to tell him? That you married Richard in August. That I was there. That I have known about this for months. Lucas, no. We agreed. You decided. I interrupted. You told me not to tell him. I never agreed to anything. And I am done lying to my dad. If you tell him about the wedding, if you tell him you knew and said nothing, it will destroy your relationship with him. He will never forgive you for keeping that secret. Then I guess he will never forgive me. But at least I will have told him the truth. That is more than you have done. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. I had never stood up to my mother like that before. It felt terrifying and liberating at the same time. 3 days later, I got another call from her. This time, her voice was different, harder. I want you to delete those photos from the wedding, she said. No. Lucas, I am your mother. I am telling you to delete them. And I am telling you no. Those photos are evidence of what really happened. I am not getting rid of them. Evidence? Are you planning to use them against me somehow? I am planning to show them to Dad when he asks what happened. Because he will ask, Mom. When you tell him you want a divorce, when you tell him about Richard, he is going to ask when it started and how far it went. And I am going to tell him the truth. You would hurt me like that. You would betray your own mother. The irony of her saying that, of accusing me of betrayal, was almost funny. "You betrayed Dad," I said quietly. "You betrayed our whole family. I am just refusing to help you cover it up anymore. Richard has lawyers, Lucas. Good lawyers. If you try to interfere in my divorce, if you try to make trouble, we will take legal action." "To do what? Sue me for taking pictures in a public courthouse? Sue me for telling the truth." She hung up without answering. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, my mom and I have not spoken. Richard called me once, trying to smooth things over, talking about how they wanted to maintain a relationship with me, but I did not return his call. Now it is December 13th, 2 days before my dad comes home. I am sitting in my dorm room, looking at those 127 photographs on my phone, evidence of a wedding that should not have happened, evidence of my mother's betrayal, evidence of my own complicity in keeping it secret for 4 months. I have been thinking about what kind of man I want to be, what kind of son, what kind of person. My mother chose her own happiness over her marriage, over her promises, over my father's trust. That was her choice, and maybe she had her reasons. Maybe Dad really had chosen the military over his family too many times. Maybe she really was desperately unhappy. Maybe Richard really is better for her. But that does not make what she did right. And it does not make my silence right either. I am 18 years old, technically an adult, but I do not feel like one most of the time. I feel like a kid who got handed an adult's problems and expected to solve them with an adult's wisdom that I do not have yet. But here's what I do know. My dad is about to come home to a life that does not exist anymore. He is about to walk into an ambush of information that will destroy him. And he deserves to hear it from someone who loves him, someone who will be honest with him, even if that honesty hurts. So I have made my final decision. When Dad gets home, I am going to tell him everything. About the wedding, about the photos, about how long I have known. I will tell him the truth and accept the consequences, whatever they are. Maybe he will be angry that I did not tell him sooner. Maybe he will never forgive me for keeping the secret even for a few months. But at least he will know that, in the end, I chose honesty over comfort. I chose him over her lies. Emma was right about one thing. I have been carrying the consequences of my mother's choices for too long. It is time to give that weight back to the person it belongs to. Tomorrow, I am going to drive to my old house and wait for my dad to arrive. And when he walks through that door, expecting to find his wife and his normal life waiting for him, I am going to be the one to tell him that everything has changed. I am 18 years old, and I am about to break my father's heart in the name of truth. I do not know if that makes me brave or cruel or just painfully, desperately human, but it makes me honest. And right now, that is the only thing I can control. The next morning, December 14th, I woke up with a knot in my stomach that I knew would not go away until this was over. I had one more day before Dad came home. One more day before everything exploded. I drove to my old house. The one Mom had not sold yet. She had given me a key months ago, back when she still thought I might move in with her and Richard. Now, I was using it to prepare for a confrontation she did not know was coming. The house felt empty, frozen in time. The furniture was still there, but it had that abandoned feeling, like a museum exhibit of our old life. I walked through the rooms, remembering what it was like when we were actually a family. I ended up in the garage, where Dad and I had rebuilt the Civic together. His tools were still hanging on the pegboard, organized exactly the way he liked them. I ran my hand over his workbench, remembering the hours we had spent out here, him teaching me about engines and mechanics, and the satisfaction of fixing things with your own hands. When you rebuild an engine, he had told me once, you cannot cut corners. You cannot pretend the broken parts are fine. You have to face what is wrong and fix it properly, or the whole thing falls apart. I had not understood then that he was talking about more than just engines. He was talking about life, about integrity, about doing things the right way even when it is hard. I thought about that as I pulled up those 127 photos on my phone, evidence of broken parts that had been hidden instead of fixed, evidence of a marriage that had fallen apart while one person was too far away to save it. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. "Lucas, I know you are angry, but please think about what you are doing. Your father does not need to know everything. Sometimes the kind thing is to spare people unnecessary pain. Please call me so we can talk about this." I did not respond. There was nothing left to say to her. Instead, I called my Uncle Mike, my dad's younger brother. He lived in Oregon, but he and Dad were close. If anyone could help me through this, it would be him. "Lucas, hey, how are you doing, kid?" His voice was warm, cheerful. "Uncle Mike, I need to talk to you about something. About Dad coming home." "Oh man, I am so excited for David to finally be home. I bet you and your mom are counting the hours, huh?" "That is the thing I need to talk to you about. Mom and Dad, they are not." I took a deep breath. "Uncle Mike, Mom got remarried while Dad was deployed. I was there. I saw it happen. And now Dad is coming home tomorrow, and I do not know how to tell him." Silence on the other end of the line. Long, shocked silence. She did what? Uncle Mike's voice had gone cold. I told him everything. The divorce filing Dad did not know about. Richard Hartwell. The courthouse, wedding in August. My mother's threats. The months of lying in emails. Jesus Christ, Uncle Mike said when I finished. "Jesus Christ, Lucas, you have been carrying this by yourself for 4 months." I did not know what else to do. I was afraid if I told Dad while he was deployed, he would get distracted and get hurt. That is not your burden to carry, kid. That is not your choice to make. You are 18 years old. You should not have been put in this position. But I was, and now I have to figure out what to do about it. What you are going to do is tell your father the truth when he gets home. All of it, and I am going to be there with you when you do it. You are not handling this alone anymore. The relief I felt hearing those words almost made me cry. I had been so alone in this, so isolated by the weight of the secret. Having someone else know, having someone else to help carry it, felt like I could breathe properly for the first time in months. "Thank you," I managed to say. "I am getting on a plane tonight," Uncle Mike said. "I will be there by tomorrow morning. We will tell David together, you and me, and whatever happens after that, we will handle it together too. You are not alone in this, Lucas." After we hung up, I sat in Dad's garage and cried for the second time since this nightmare began. But this time it was not just sadness. It was relief. It was gratitude. It was the feeling of finally having help. That night, I barely slept. I kept running through scenarios in my head. How would Dad react? Would he be angry at Mom? Would he be angry at me? Would he break down? Would he try to win her back? I thought about all those emails he had sent, all those messages about missing her and loving her and looking forward to coming home to her. I thought about his excitement, his plans for their future together, and I thought about how all of that was about to be destroyed. Part of me still wondered if I was making the right choice. Maybe my mom was right. Maybe the kind thing would be to let Dad process the divorce first, to let him adjust to that reality before hitting him with the full truth of her remarriage. Maybe knowing about the wedding would just add unnecessary pain. But no, that was the same logic that had kept me silent for 4 months. That was the logic of protecting the liar at the expense of the person being lied to. Dad deserved the whole truth. He deserved to make his own decisions with all the information. He deserved to know that while he was risking his life for his country, his wife was building a new life with someone else. Morning came. December 15th, the day Dad was coming home. Uncle Mike showed up at my dorm at 8 in the morning. He looked older than I remembered, more tired, but his hug was solid and real. "You ready for this, kid?" he asked. "No," I admitted, "but I do not think I ever will be ready, so I guess now is as good a time as any." We drove to my old house together. Uncle Mike brought coffee and breakfast sandwiches, but I could not eat. My stomach was in knots. "Your dad is strong," Uncle Mike said as we pulled into the driveway. "This is going to hurt him bad, but he is going to survive it. And you being honest with him, that is going to mean everything in the long run. He is going to be able to trust you even when his whole world is falling apart. What if he hates me for not telling him sooner? He might be angry about that. He has a right to be. But Lucas, you were put in an impossible situation by your mother. You made the best choice you could with the information and maturity you had at the time. That is all anyone can ask." We sat in the living room and waited. Dad's flight was supposed to land at 11. He would probably be home by 1 in the afternoon. At 12:30, Uncle Mike's phone rang. It was Dad. "Mike, brother, what are you doing here? I just pulled up and saw your rental car in the driveway. Come inside, David. We need to talk." 5 minutes later, my father walked through the front door. He was in his Class A uniform, the formal army greens. He looked tired, thinner than I remembered, with new lines around his eyes. But he was alive and whole and home. "Lucas!" He dropped his duffel bag and grabbed me in a hug that nearly lifted me off the ground. "God, I missed you. Let me look at you. You look good, son. College is treating you well." "Dad, My voice cracked. He noticed then. Noticed the way I could not quite meet his eyes. Noticed Uncle Mike standing there with a serious expression. Noticed the tension in the room. "What is going on?" Dad asked, his smile fading. "Where is your mom?" I texted her that I landed, but she has not responded. "David, sit down," Uncle Mike said gently. "No. Tell me what is going on. Is it your mom? Is she hurt? Is she—" "She is fine, Dad," I said quickly. "She is not hurt, but we need to talk to you about her." Dad sat down slowly on the couch, and I could see his military training kicking in. That ability to stay calm in crisis situations, to assess threats, to prepare for bad news. "Tell me," he said. So I told him. Everything. Uncle Mike sat beside him while I stood and laid out the whole story. The moment in July when Mom introduced me to Richard. The divorce filing Dad did not know about. The wedding in August. The courthouse ceremony where I stood and watched and took pictures because I did not know what else to do. The months of lying in emails because I was terrified of distracting him in a war zone. All of it. Dad did not interrupt. He sat perfectly still, his face carefully blank, while I destroyed his world. When I finished, I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos. All 127 of them. My mother in her wedding dress. Richard in his expensive suit. The marriage license with both their signatures. The kiss. The moment that ended my father's marriage while he was 8,000 miles away. Dad looked through every single photo. It took almost 15 minutes. He did not say a word. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet and controlled. "She filed for divorce in July." "Yes, sir." "And married this man, this Richard Hartwell, in August?" "Yes, sir." "And you were there. You watched it happen." "Yes, sir." I was crying now, could not help it. "Dad, I am so sorry. I should have told you right away. I should have sent you an email. Should have found a way to let you know. But I was scared that if you knew, if you were thinking about this instead of focusing on your mission, something might happen to you. I was afraid I would get you killed. So I kept quiet and I lied to you for 4 months. And I know that makes me a terrible son, and I am so sorry." Dad looked up at me then, and I saw that his eyes were wet too. "Come here," he said. I went to him, and he pulled me into a hug. the same way he had when I was little and had scraped my knee or had a nightmare. "You are not a terrible son," he said, his voice rough. "You are 18 years old, and your mother put you in an impossible position. You tried to protect me the only way you knew how. I am not angry at you, Lucas. I am angry at her for making you carry this. I am angry at her for a lot of things, but not at you. Never at you." I cried harder, all the guilt and fear and stress of the past 4 months pouring out. Dad held me like I was still a kid, and Uncle Mike put his hand on my shoulder, and for a minute we just stayed like that. Finally, Dad let me go and wiped his eyes. "Okay," he said. "Okay, I need to process this. I need to..." He looked around the house like he was seeing it for the first time. "She is not coming back here, is she?" "No, sir. She moved into Richard's house in Granite Bay right after the wedding." "Does she know you are telling me this today?" "She knows I planned to tell you the truth when you got home. She wanted me to keep the wedding secret, to let you think it was just a divorce. But I could not do that. You deserve to know everything." Dad nodded slowly. "I need to talk to her. I need to hear this from her." He pulled out his phone and called my mom. She answered on the second ring. "David, you are home. I was going to call you later today. I wanted to give you time to settle in." "Lucas told me," Dad said, his voice flat, "about everything. About Richard. About the wedding in August." Silence on the other end. "David, I can explain." "No. No explanations. I just have one question. Did you marry someone else while I was deployed?" A pause. Then, quietly, "Yes." Dad closed his eyes. "Okay, that is all I needed to know. My lawyer will be in contact about the divorce proceedings. David, please, if you would just listen." "There is nothing to listen to, Jennifer. You made your choice. You made it months ago. We are done." He hung up and sat there, phone in his hand, staring at nothing. "David," Uncle Mike said gently, "what do you need? What can we do?" "I need a drink," Dad said, "and I need not to be in this house right now. Can we go somewhere? Anywhere else?" We ended up at a bar Uncle Mike knew, a quiet place where we could talk. Dad had 2 beers, then switched to water. Uncle Mike and I just sat with him while he processed. 20 years, Dad said at one point. 20 years of marriage. 3 deployments. I thought when I retired in a few years, we would finally have time together. I thought she was waiting for that. I thought we were building towards something. She was building towards something, Uncle Mike said bitterly. "Just not with you." "The thing is," Dad said, "I understand why she was unhappy. I do. The deployments were hard on her. On both of you." He nodded at me. "I was gone more than I was home. I missed birthdays and anniversaries and all the daily stuff that makes a marriage work. I get that. That does not excuse what she did," I said. No, it does not. There were 1,000 ways she could have handled this. She could have asked me not to re-enlist. She could have told me she wanted a divorce before I deployed. She could have waited until I was home to start dating. But getting married while I was overseas, having our 18-year-old son there as a witness, and then making him lie to me for months, that is... He shook his head. "That is cruel. That is deliberately cruel." We sat with that for a while. "What are you going to do?" Uncle Mike asked. "I am going to call a lawyer on Monday. I am going to make sure this divorce is handled properly. I am going to figure out what happens to the house, to our shared assets. I am going to do all the practical, adult things you do when your marriage ends." He looked at me. "And I am going to make sure my son knows that none of this is his fault. None of it. I should have told you sooner," I said again. "Lucas, listen to me. You were protecting me the best way you knew how. Was it the right choice? I do not know. Maybe if you had told me in August, I would have been distracted and gotten hurt. Maybe knowing would have made me sharper, more focused. We will never know. But what I do know is that you were trying to keep me safe. That is what a good son does. So stop apologizing. What about Mom? I asked. Are you going to talk to her again? Eventually, when I am ready, when I can do it without saying things I will regret. But not today. Today, I just need to accept that my marriage is over. We stayed at that bar for hours, talking and not talking, processing the unprocessable. Eventually, Dad said he was tired, wanted to get a hotel room and sleep. You can stay with me, Uncle Mike offered. Actually, Dad said, I think I need to be alone for a while. But thank you, both of you, for being here, for telling me the truth. He dropped us off at my dorm, hugged me hard, and drove away in his rental car. I did not hear from him for 3 days. Uncle Mike assured me that was normal, that Dad needed space to process. But I worried anyway. Then, on the 4th day, he called. Hey son, wanna grab lunch? We met at a diner near campus. Dad looked better than he had, less shocked, more resolved. I talked to a lawyer, he said, since your mom already filed for divorce and is remarried. This should be pretty straightforward. We will split the assets, sell the house, and move on. How are you doing with all this? I asked. Honestly, some moments I am fine. Other moments, I am so angry I can barely think straight. Not at you, he added quickly. At your mother. At Richard. Though I do not even really know the guy. At the whole situation. I get that. But, you know what is weird? Part of me is also relieved. Like, if she could do this to me, if she could betray me this completely, then maybe we were not meant to be together anyway. Maybe this is actually better than spending the next 20 years in a marriage that was slowly dying. That is a pretty mature way to look at it. He smiled slightly. Well, I have had 3 days to do nothing but think. And I have had worse betrayals in my life than this. Not many, but a few. We ate our burgers in comfortable silence for a while. I want you to know something, Dad said eventually. Your mother and I, we are done. But you are still her son and mine. You do not have to choose sides. You can have a relationship with her if you want to. I do not know if I want to, I admitted. She threatened me, Dad. She told me if I told you about the wedding, she would say I was lying. She tried to manipulate me into keeping her secret. Dad's jaw tightened. She said that to you? Yeah. That is not okay. That is not remotely okay. What she did to me, that is between her and me. But dragging you into it, making you responsible for her lies, that is unforgivable. So what do I do? Whatever feels right to you. If you want to talk to her, talk to her. If you want space, take space. But Lucas, promise me something. Promise me you will never again let someone make you responsible for their betrayals. Not your mother, not anyone. You tell the truth, you do the right thing, and you let other people deal with the consequences of their own actions. Can you promise me that? I promise. Good. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I am proud of you, you know, for telling me the truth, even though it was hard, for standing up to your mother when she tried to manipulate you, for trying to protect me even though it cost you. You are a good man, Lucas. You are going to be just fine. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that I had done the right thing, that telling the truth was always better than protecting lies. But it still hurt. It still felt like I had been the one to break my father's heart, even if my mother had given me the weapon to do it with. Over the next few weeks, things slowly settled into a new normal. Dad stayed at Uncle Mike's place while he looked for an apartment. The divorce proceedings moved forward. The house went on the market. I saw my mother exactly once during this time. She called and asked to meet me for coffee. I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. She looked different, happier, maybe, or at least more relaxed than I had seen her in years. She was wearing expensive clothes, the kind she could never afford on Dad's salary. "Thank you for meeting me," she said when I sat down. "What do you want, Mom?" "I want to explain. I want you to understand why I did what I did." "You already explained. You were unhappy. Richard made you happy. You chose him over Dad." "It was more complicated than that, Lucas. Your father and I, we had been struggling for years. The deployments were just the symptom, not the disease. We were not good together anymore. We were just going through the motions. So you should have gotten a divorce. You should have been honest. You should not have gotten married while he was deployed." I know that was wrong, but I was afraid if I told him, before he left, if I distracted him, he would get hurt. I was trying to protect him. The irony of her using the same justification I had used was not lost on me. "You were not trying to protect him," I said. "You were trying to protect yourself. You did not want to deal with the confrontation, with the mess of ending a marriage, so you took the easy way out. You started a new life and figured you would deal with Dad when he got home. And you made me part of your plan. You made me lie for you. I never asked you to lie. You told me not to tell Dad about the wedding. That is the same thing." She looked away. "I should not have involved you. That was wrong. But, Lucas, can you at least try to understand? I was desperate. I was drowning in a life I did not want anymore. Richard offered me a way out, a chance at happiness. I took it. Maybe I took it wrong. Maybe I hurt people in the process. But I took it because I had to. At what cost? You destroyed Dad. You damaged my relationship with both of you. You built your happiness on other people's pain. Was it worth it?" "I do not know yet," she said honestly. "Ask me in a year. But Lucas, I need you to know something. I love you. No matter what happens between your father and me, no matter how angry you are at me right now, I love you. You are my son. That does not change." "I love you too," I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. "But I do not like you very much right now, and I do not know when that is going to change." "That is fair. That is more than fair." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Will you at least think about coming to visit? Richard and I, we want you to be part of our lives." "I will think about it. But Mom, do not expect me to come around quickly. You broke something. With me, with Dad, with our whole family. That does not heal just because you want it to." I left her there in the coffee shop and did not look back. Christmas came and went. It was the strangest Christmas of my life. Dad and I went to Uncle Mike's place in Oregon. Just the three of us. We did not talk about Mom much. We watched football, ate too much food, and pretended things were normal, even though they were not. On New Year's Eve, Dad and I stayed up until midnight. We were sitting on Uncle Mike's deck, watching fireworks in the distance. "New Year, new start," Dad said, raising his beer. "New start," I echoed, clinking my soda against his bottle. "I have been thinking about retiring," Dad said suddenly. "My 20 years is up next fall. I was planning to do another 5, get to 25, maximize my pension. But now, I do not know. Maybe it is time to do something different. Maybe it is time to actually be present in your life instead of being deployed half the time." "You do not have to do that for me," I said. "I am not doing it for you. Well, not just for you. I am doing it for me too. I am tired, Lucas. Tired of the deployments. Tired of the distance. Tired of missing out on life. Your mother was right about one thing. I have spent 20 years choosing the Army over my family. Maybe it is time to choose differently. What would you do if you retired?" "No idea. Learn a trade, maybe. I always liked working with my hands. Maybe become a mechanic, like what you do at that auto shop. Or maybe something completely different. Point is, I would have options. I would have time to figure it out." "I think that sounds good," I said. "I think you should do it." Yeah. You have given enough to the Army. Time to give something to yourself." We watched the fireworks in silence for a while. "Lucas," Dad said eventually, "I want to thank you again for telling me the truth. I know it was hard. I know it probably feels like you were the one who hurt me. But you were not. Your mother hurt me. You just gave me the information I needed to see it clearly. I wish I had told you sooner. Maybe, but you made the choice you thought was right at the time. That is all any of us can do. And in the end, you chose honesty over comfort. You chose truth over keeping the peace. That takes real courage. I do not feel very courageous. Courage is not about feeling brave. It is about doing the hard thing, even when you are terrified. And you did that. You are 18 years old, and you made a decision that most adults would struggle with. I am proud of you, son. I hope you know that. I did know that. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I actually believed I had done the right thing. Not the easy thing, not the comfortable thing, but the right thing. That was 6 months ago. It is summer now, and I am about to start my sophomore year of engineering. A lot has changed since that December day when I told my father the truth. Dad retired from the Army in April. He bought a small house in Sacramento, close to my campus. He is taking classes to become a certified mechanic, working toward the career he always wanted but never had time for. The divorce was finalized in May. Mom got the house. Dad got his military pension and half the assets. It was as clean a break as a 20-year marriage can have. I have seen Mom a few times since our coffee shop conversation. It is awkward and strained, but we are trying. She is still with Richard, living in that big house in Granite Bay. She seems happy, or at least content. I do not know if I will ever fully forgive her, but I am learning to accept that she made her choice and I made mine. Emma and I never got back together, but we are friends now. She is dating a guy from Berkeley and seems happy. When I told her about how everything went down with Dad, she hugged me and said, "I told you honesty was the right choice." She was right, not because honesty made everything better, because it did not. Dad is still dealing with the pain of betrayal. I still feel guilty about the months I kept silent. Mom still has to live with what she did, but honesty made things real. It put everything out in the open where it could be dealt with instead of festering in secret. It gave Dad the information he needed to make his own choices. It freed me from the burden of carrying someone else's lies. I am 19 now, still young, still learning, still making mistakes. But I learned something important through all this. Being an adult is not about age or freedom or independence. It is about integrity. It is about doing the hard thing, even when the easy thing is right there tempting you. It is about being honest, even when honesty costs you something. My name is Lucas Mitchell. I am 19 years old, and I am the guy who told the truth, even when it broke my father's heart. Because sometimes love means being honest, even when honesty hurts. That is the kind of man I want to be. The kind who tells the truth. The kind who protects people by being honest, not by protecting lies. The kind who understands that real courage is not about being fearless. It is about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. I did not ask for this responsibility. I did not want to be the one standing between my parents, holding secrets that could destroy everything. But I was, and I had to make a choice. I chose truth. I chose honesty. I chose my father's right to know over my mother's desire to hide. And I would make that choice again every single time. Thank you for listening to my story of growing up faster than I ever wanted to. I have left 2 more stories on your screen, both from young men who learned that sometimes becoming an adult does not happen at 18. It happens the moment your family needs you to be strong. Click on whichever one speaks to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be forced to grow up overnight, that notification bell is waiting. Until tomorrow, remember, age is just a number, but courage defines who you really are.